Russia's massive buildup of troops and firepower on Ukraine's doorstep and the possible timing of any invasion. ABC's Terry Moran is in Kyiv with the latest. Good morning to you, Terry.
Good morning, Eva. This morning, as Russia continues to pour land, sea, and air forces into this region, new satellite imagery analyzed by independent researchers seems to show some Russian forces are on the move, taking forward positions closer to the Ukrainian border. All this as thousands of U.S. troops are arriving in Eastern Europe today to bolster NATO. This morning, Russia is expanding its vast troop deployments around Ukraine, the Kremlin adding forces on all fronts. All told now, the U.S. saying the Russian deployments around Ukraine represent the largest advanced deployment of combat firepower in Europe since World War II, equivalent to the U.S. Army's full active duty capability. ABC News has learned that the U.S. now estimates that Russia has 70% of the forces in place that would be needed to invade Ukraine, from special operations troops to tanks and artillery to air and naval forces. But intelligence agencies in the U.S. and NATO allies continue to assess that Vladimir Putin has not made a final decision on war. These new satellite images show Moscow's military buildup in neighboring Belarus, including ground attack aircraft, artillery, and more. Russia has moved advanced fighters and attack helicopters to the areas around Ukraine. And the Russian military has released this video showing a pair of long-range nuclear-capable bombers on patrol over Belarus. While in the nearby Black Sea, as many as 30 Russian warships are deployed, including 5 amphibious assault ships that could be used for beach landings, and more may be on the way. If Vladimir Putin decides to invade, ABC News has learned the U.S. believes it would likely be in the coming weeks, during what is usually the deepest winter freeze here. The hard ground would make it easier for tanks to navigate the rugged terrain. All this as the first of 3,000 U.S. troops sent by President Biden arrived this weekend in Germany and Poland, deployed to reinforce NATO allies, not Ukraine. Meanwhile, in Ukraine's capital city of Kyiv, more military aid arrived Saturday, part of a $200 million package from the United States. While in the outskirts of the city, some civilians on weekends are receiving weapons and medical training in case Russia invades. This volunteer saying, "We have to defend our borders and the future of our nation." And a show of defiance in Kyiv, Ukraine's second largest city, 25 miles from the Russian border. Thousands of Ukrainians marching, demanding an end to the Russian threat. The Ukrainian government continues to say that as they analyze the situation, they don't see that Russia is ready to invade. They're trying to tamp down the tension. But that protest in Kyiv, Ukraine's second largest city, shows a rising spirit of concern and even militancy here. They don't want war, but if there is one, it looks like they'll be ready to fight it. Whit?
Terry Moran in Ukraine's capital for us. Thank you. Let's bring in ABC's chief global affairs correspondent, Martha Raddatz, who'll be hosting This Week later on this morning. Martha, good morning to you. It's always great to have you. So let's start right there with the tension in Ukraine and that new intelligence that Vladimir Putin perhaps hasn't made a decision yet about whether to invade. What impact could this have on the U.S. response and calculation?
Well, I think, Whit, at this point, they really don't know whether he has made a decision. And even if he had made one, he could change his mind. But look what you saw. Look what you saw what's happening in Ukraine and what Terry was telling us about. This doesn't look like any de-escalation on either side. You've got the U.S. Backing up NATO. You've got Russia continuing to build up those troops. I think the scenarios are absolutely horrible. If he goes in with a full invasion, you could have a massive refugee crisis. You could have massive civilian and military casualties. So this is getting more dangerous by the day. The U.S. originally said they thought he would make a decision, and if he does invade, and there are many who think he will, that it would be before mid-February or perhaps after those Olympic Games.
Global implications at stake here, but